This is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. A very popular analyst in the world of crypto says that this market is going to go and that it, quote, it has to be now, end quote. Now, at the same time, tons of people are still either in denial or oblivious of the fact that I keep screaming this on my channel, the fact that XRP has been outperforming the market and is going to dominate most coins this cycle, including Bitcoin and ETH. And in fact, recently, it most certainly has. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, I'm going to kick off this video with another post from Seth Golden, who I'm quickly becoming a fan of. Seth Golden is a hedge fund consultant and chief market strategist at Phenom Group, and he just keeps spitting out all sorts of awesome, useful data, provides very significant historical context, and can help you come to your own conclusion about what you personally think is most probable to occur in the future. And in this case, we're talking in traditional markets, in this case specifically the S&P 500, and this is important to all of us in crypto because the crypto market does move in tandem with the stock market. Both stocks and cryptocurrencies are considered risk-on assets. If there is an appetite for risk in the stock market, there is also an appetite for risk in the crypto market. Historically, this has always been the case. This is also the reason that we've never seen an alt season without people going further out the risk curve in the stock market, meaning purchasing riskier stocks, smaller cap stocks, which are perceived to be riskier than large caps. So as you get into like stocks, or even just an ETF tracking the Russell 2000, when you see that type of activity, pretty much at the same time, you see an expansion for alts. Broadly speaking, that is the case, and we've never had an alt season without that occurring. So all of this matters. If you want your XRP to go, as I'm willing to bet you do, and I do too, this matters. And so here's what he wrote, and this is fascinating. He said, so, perfect 100% mic drop. For the 6th time this year and 15th time since 2017, the S&P 500 has gapped higher by plus 1% to make an all-time high. Here we go. Every single time the S&P 500 was higher 3 months later, every single time. Mean 3-month return equals plus 4.4%. So then he cites, if you apply that to this moment in time, that would bring us to December 19th. And so if history is to repeat and it were to increase by that amount, you'd have a plus 4.4%, which in the S&P 500 is actually pretty gigantic. So he stops short of making an outright prediction, but he says, here's the data. If history does the same thing-ish, that's what it would be. Now, that is in line with all sorts of other stuff from a historical perspective based on data that I keep showing you on this channel. I mean, one of the first things along these lines that I cited this year would have been in January when the S&P for the first time hit a new all-time high since it was in a bear market. It hit that new high in January, and I noted at the time that historically, 12 out of the last 13 times the S&P 500 hit a new all-time high in a new cycle, dating back to the 1950s. 12 out of those 13 times, if you fast-forwarded 12 months, the S&P 500 would be up on average about 16%. Almost always. So we just hit that. And so now I'm sharing with you as we've been going through this, and Seth, this is why I just think he's a gold mine. Last name Golden, maybe that's why. But he keeps citing this data, which, I mean, it supports, we should believe that that's what's most probable, should we not? Unless there's some sort of factor that makes you think that there's some sort of black swan product, although by definition, I mean, that's kind of something you couldn't predict anyway. But is there reason to believe that we're going to have some sort of, in short order in the next 3 months, a massive recession in the next 3 months? I'm not saying there won't be a recession at some point. Of course there will at some point. You can't just go on forever without a recession. Although even that's not the end of the world. The typical recession lasts, what, about a year? And it's not always something that's going to destroy everyone's lives. So I'm not saying it won't happen, but at some point. But man, I don't see this as something that's going to ruin our opportunity for life-changing wealth this cycle in the world of crypto. That's a broader point I'm making. Also, there is this video on YouTube from chart analyst Alessio Restani, and I think he's one of the best out there. He's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers on his channel for a good reason. And he titled his video, which came out the other day, "Why Everybody is Wrong About the Stock Markets and the Fed Rate Cut." And I'm not going to regurgitate everything he said. If you want to check it out, feel free to do so. But I did want to note something he pointed out that isn't sufficiently highlighted. So, and it's in line with what I've been telling you because it's just data. But he points out, look, yeah, it's true that most of the time that the Fed has a rate cut, it does correlate to negative market activity. That is true most of the time. But then if you look at the times, and this is what I was saying, if you look at the times where there hasn't been recession and there hasn't been some sort of crazy black swan event, then there have been all sorts of instances where a rate cut hasn't resulted in complete and utter calamity. And that is true. And in his video, one of the things he highlights is, and he goes back decades to show you this, there have absolutely been instances where there are rate cuts, including in the 90s, where, yeah, there was a rate cut, and then, the market just kept going higher. So it's not a foregone conclusion that just because we had the rate cut, things are going to go down. And I don't deny that's possible. I'm just telling you, if you think that we're actually in some sort of recessionary period right this second, yeah, you should be alarmed then, because that typically, the rate cuts would correlate with that typically. But if we're not going to have something disastrous happen, then outside of that, history tells us, no, you actually just keep going to the upside. Not literally forever, but yeah, you do for the foreseeable future. There's this post from chart analyst Crypto Caesar, and he said, people getting bearish on alts whilst Bitcoin dominance is at 58% and coming close to a top is the classic reaction of a non-seasoned crypto investor / trader. Not sure if you work this out yet, but alt seasons start when Bitcoin dominance is very high and then starts to break down. Until then, you must exercise patience, either that or capitulate at the last moment. Yeah, that is factually correct. And chart analyst Ali Martinez was echoing pretty much the same idea. Here he says, Bitcoin dominance seems to be topping out, hinting at a possible dip to 47%, setting the stage for an alt season. Now, of course, you can start to see alts pop off before that. I'm not saying you can't. Of course you can. But the true euphoria of an alt season occurs when you do see an actual decline in Bitcoin dominance. And at the same time, the dollar price of Bitcoin can keep increasing, but in terms of the dominance of the market, that would be going down still. Historically, that's been quite normal. Then there's this post from chart analyst Rickus. This is the crypto total market cap excluding the top 10 coins, and it's a dominance percentage chart. And he says, let's do some charts. Altcoin dominance. Oh, must be coincidence. And why does he say that? You can see where he's circling right now, this moment of the others' dominance bouncing off of this particular trend line. And he shows this going back half a frickin' decade. And what happens as it bounces off of this? Well, if history is to rhyme with itself, move to the upside sooner than later. We also have this from this. Oh man, this is not going to age well because it's obviously a sour post. It very obviously is. This is from a chart analyst I'm not familiar with, but it popped up in my feed and it's been getting circulated again, so I thought I'd share it. This guy Dubsy has 183,300 followers on X, and he posted this back in July. XRP USD chart, and he circled what was then the current moment in time, along with September of 2018 back here, for those of you looking at the screen where I'm circling my mouse, and he wrote, if you put $10,000 into XRP in September 2018, today you would have $10,000. And so obviously he's choosing a particular time frame that would allow him to proceed with this narrative that XRP is crap, it's just a stablecoin, blah, 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 blah. So you can see what he's doing with that. But you could pick a different time frame that makes XRP look way better, even after September 2018. For example, in March 2020, XRP dropped to 10 cents. So had you put $10,000 into XRP at that point in time, in March 2020, today it would be worth closer to $60,000. Well, how about that? This way these arguments are so stupid. When I see this, it's so clearly disingenuous. This has to be somebody who just irrationally despises XRP. That's the only type of person that would go to the trouble of making a post like this, because it's not like benefiting anybody. If he just wants to mock, and maybe he's got a bunch of toxic Bitcoin maxis as his followers, and then maybe it makes sense to engage because his followers are going to get off on that. Okay, whatever. But Charting Guy responded to that, And he kind of put him in his place. Charting Guy wrote, okay, now do $10,000 at September 2016, LOL. And of course, he says that because, and I don't know the exact price in September, but before XRP took off, it was around half a penny. So it's the point that I was making. It's all about the time frame you select. You could make the same BS arguments and apply them to Bitcoin. From 1 year to whatever, X, 1, 2, 3 years, whatever. You can find moments where XRP, or Bitcoin rather, even years apart, would be the same price. Does that mean Bitcoin doesn't make sense and can't or won't ever move to the upside? No, that's a stupid argument. But if you just want to have the lulls, and if it's going to play to your stupid ass audience, then okay, go for it. Then Charting Guy says, many fail to realize 2018 through 2024 has just been a huge consolation, I'm sure he means consolidation, that is a macro wave for symmetrical triangle, due to break out this cycle. But sure, keep calling it a stable coin. Not for much longer. And indeed, this already isn't aging well because XRP, like I keep saying, priced against the rest of the top 100 coins, is substantially outperforming, including against Bitcoin and ETH. In fact, take a look at this. This is from a chart analyst, Jim Knox. He says, since this summer, you've earned 80% more with XRP than with ETH. And now it looks like it will appreciate even further. Let that sink in. Yup. Then there's this from chart analyst Crypto Luca. I'm not familiar with this particular analyst, but he's got a pretty notable following at 35,700 followers. XRP USD chart, and he said, XRP patiently waiting for this to break out. And I keep seeing this from analyst after analyst after analyst. And I'm seeing more and more analysts pop up in my feed talking about XRP, who I happen to have not heard of. Not that that necessarily means anything, but I'm just noticing it. That's not normally what occurs being in the world of XRP. All sorts of people independently coming to the same or similar conclusion. I don't think that's a coincidence. And then there's this from the Daily Hodl. It has to be now. Raoul Pal unveils massive Bitcoin price target, says Bitcoin repeating 2023 rally perfectly. And this is fascinating because he's talking about here largely about liquidity. And so what drives markets to pop off? Liquidity. It's not the Bitcoin halving, it is liquidity on a global scale. So check this out. Macro guru Raoul Pal believes that the stage is set for Bitcoin to explode to his massive price target. In a video posted on Real Vision's YouTube channel, the former Goldman Sachs executive says Bitcoin tends to rise and fall with global liquidity cycles. And I will pause and note, I mentioned this topic, I don't know if it's several days or so ago, because he also shared a post about this. Now we have additional commentary and perspective from him because he ended up talking about it on his channel. But I was literally talking about the chart that's on your screen right here probably several days or so ago, but it's worth mentioning again with the additional context, and also because this is the reason that markets go. Anyway, piece continues. This is a quote. It's an absolutely beautiful chart. It's the GMI, Global Macro Investor Global Weekly Liquidity Index. So that's both private sector liquidity and public sector liquidity from the large global economies. I mean, it's just perfect. It leads by 10 weeks. So you've got that. You've got Bitcoin seasonality. Bitcoin is always strong from this point onwards, end quote. And so there you can see, if you just adjust for that 10-week move, because Bitcoin is reacting here, that's what he's getting at. He's saying that Bitcoin is reacting to liquidity levels. So that's why if you move the global liquidity forward by 10 weeks, that's when it pairs up. So it takes that long for it to circulate and get to wherever it's going to be invested ultimately. In this case, he's correlating it to Bitcoin. That's the argument that he's making anyway. Piece continues. Paul shares another chart suggesting that Bitcoin is closely mirroring its price action from January 2023 to March 2024, when Bitcoin jumped about 350% from $16,500 to around $74,000. According to the macro guru, conditions look ripe for a big Bitcoin surge. And he said, quote, Bitcoin is also repeating what it did last year, literally perfectly. So we've got the macro overlay. The Fed is going to keep cutting over time. The other central banks are going to be involved. We've got the seasonality in place. We got the global liquidity cycle in place. I don't know what else is left. It has to be now, end quote. So this is the moment, and I'm not going to make a prediction, but I do think that there is something to this concept, and historically, it's certainly true, and history kind of rhymes with itself. So Q4 will not be the least bit surprised to see some serious fireworks. This asset class cannot and will not continue to reign here forever. It's the same thing I say about XRP specifically. It's true of Bitcoin. It's true of the asset class. We're not going to stay here forever. So the question is, do we break down into a bear market, or are we going to move on to the upside? My bet, just my for fun bet, upside. I'm betting it goes to the upside. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.